Yo, what's good, everybody? Jaxp Gaming back at it again with another video about TV, media, just entertainment in general. We're gonna be talking about the anime, or really the manga, very popular, goes by the name of Berserk. Now, I just recently got into it. It took me 2 days to watch the 1997 25 episode anime, and it was really good. It was very interesting. It's not at all how you expect it to be. I went into it really just because of the popularity that it brings. Everybody that in the anime world or in the world of just entertainment, Berserk is a very popular name, and I went into it with no expectations, just kind of bored, not having much to do on my free time. So I just started watching episodes because I found first episode kind of interesting. So progressively, this show's about a guy named Guts, who is a mercenary since birth, that's trained to be a killer practically his whole life. He only knows war. He only knows how to. His whole life is around just fighting and conflict and just stuff of that nature. And then, not to go into too many details, I'm gonna just be pretty vague about it. He meets this guy named Griffin, and if you know anything at all about the manga or the show or the overall just the talks about it, the name Griffith comes up a lot. Even me, before I even had any interest in watching or entertaining myself in this medium, I knew about Griffith and how the betrayal they have this whole Griffith is horrendous, like why did he do it? So I was kind of curious about that. And so as I'm watching it, it begins with Guts, just doing his thing, fighting, mercenary. He seems to be overwhelming people at a very young age. I think he's like 11, 12. Very young, very skilled fighter. And then Griffin comes around and finds him just fighting and watches him from afar, which interests Griffith. And Griffith at this time, he's the leader of a band of mercenaries called the Band of the Hawks with an S, which has multiple members that come all around the same age group of like very young teenagers to like older kids, like 12 to like 15 maybe. And there's just mercenaries that are led by Griffith. And so Guts, he defeats some very powerful enemy, and as Griffith witnesses, it catches his interest. And then after the matter of the fact happens, Griffith finds him and kind of challenges him, or not even challenges him. He just his one of the Band of the Hawk members challenges him, tells him he's not all that. Starts like throwing shade at him, and then Guts very easily overpowers and kills two members. And Griffith, instead of sending more people to kill Guts, he's like, okay, I'm gonna take this one on by myself. And then he defeats Guts, and that's how he claims his life. As he says, he claims Guts until Guts can defeat him in a duel. And that happens. And then for the next 4 years, they stay together in the Band of the Hawks, and they continue to just do mercenary things. But Griffith is something about him is he's very, very knowledgeable. He's a very intelligent leader. So he knows a lot of war tactics. He knows a lot of just overall fighting tactics, and he's a very, very prestigious young leader. I don't think he loses a battle at any point. At any point does he lose any battle. I'm pretty sure through his leadership. And anyways, fast forward. They keep winning. They eventually be gaining what's it called? They eventually kind of join a kingdom as knights, but they're not really accepted because they're mercenaries. But the kingdom needs them to kind of win their battles for them, and it's a whole thing. And then, but the king's members and the whole royal palace kind of is against the whole idea of them, and it's like fair, not fair, like it's just fair, the thought process is like an older age, like when kings and stuff were still around type setting. And so they win the whole war, and then Guts decides to leave the Band of the Hawks, right? And then after Guts decides to leave the Band of the Hawks, Griffith kind of goes crazy because they duel again because Griffith still owns his life, and they duel again, and then Guts just simply overpowers him. Guts is just way too. He's too skilled. He's just way too good, and Griffith has nothing for it practically. So Guts just walks away. He leaves. He just completely leaves, and then he just continues on and continues on for a year, just trying to find his own path. And then there's a big pivotal moment. Griffith loses his mind after Guts leave. Even though Guts didn't feel this way, Griffith felt like Guts was his one equal in a way. What Griffith doesn't have for, I guess, battle strength, he has for his intelligence, and what Guts doesn't have for his intelligence, he has with his strength. You know what I mean? It's one of those, like, they complement each other very well. And so Griffith just kind of goes insane, and he kind of does something he's not supposed to with the princess. He kind of goes into her room, and and then the kingdom finds out, and Griffith gets exiled practically to torture for the whole year that Guts is gone. And Guts has no idea of this going on, but as soon as Guts leave, the whole band of the Hawks, they get exiled from the kingdom, and then they just have to live in running in constant war against the kingdom and whatever knights they send at him. And if you read it, the manga, this isn't in the anime, but I reread the manga. There's a band of what's it called? I think it's a band of hounds or something like that, of dogs. Very, 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 very ugly stuff. Very, very, very just disturbing stuff going on there. And it's very interesting, the art style and the overall composition that it brings and the feeling you get. It's like, imagine if the world was just horrible and horrendous in every way possible, and that's Berserk. Imagine if everything in that could go wrong, and I mean like everything, like there's demons, everything could go wrong, just happens and it goes wrong. And so in this very, very vile setting where plenty of illegal stuff to this day like happens, and it's probably like, if you really think about it, back in the day, like when there was the laws and stuff weren't that set, and like, it wasn't society how it is now, stuff of the Berserk manner probably happened, but not to the same extent or the same extreme, especially. But I digress. It continues on the whole year, and then Guts hears word because there's this there's this guy, a part of another kind of mercenary, or no, he's a weapons seller, whatever you call those. He sells weapons. He goes up to the village, or the hut got the hut got. He goes up to the house that Guts is living in with the family that he's kind of like sheltering himself with, and tells them there's this mercenary group on the run that has a big bounty on him. And then Guts gets interested because he's wondering why or who this, not interested like, oh, I want to partake, but interested in like, this might be my band of the Hawks. And so as that's happening, he says the name, Bands of the Hawks, and Guts automatically practically goes to their aid. Casca is the leader now because Griffith is still under imprisonment, and Casca is the only other what's it called? I forgot what they called him, but he's a lead. She's a lead practically, but she's a new leader since Griffith's gone, Guts is gone. She's the leader, and she's a very emotional woman. She tries to do more than she possibly can, but you see the effort. You feel me? And then this world is not a very forgiving world, but good people still exist. So as everything is going on, the worst of the worst that could happen to Casca, especially over the last like however many panels before the eclipse happens to her. Like, I swear, like there's like 4 different times that like she just gets absolutely like manhandled in a horrendous way, and it's hard to see. It's hard to see, but it's just the world, how the world is built, and it's a very dark, very twisted world. You feel me? So as things keep going and stuff progresses, they eventually, they get Griffith out of the jail, and then they break him out. They have to fight. There's this one big guy. You can find out about the apostles, which I think they're called the apostles of the the demon, the devil. I'm not sure, but they're called apostles, and they kind of are there to guarantee that the demon king is reborn in a funky way. So the demon king has to be reborn, and that's their whole motive. So as long as the demon king is born, they do, they're happy, I guess, in a way, kind of. I don't know. That's their job, and so I don't know the names too well because I'm really bad with names. But one of them appears and tries to he's from the kingdom. He's part of the bloodhound or the doghound or whatever. It's a knight from the. It's a group of knights from the kingdom that are ex prisoners and ex prisoners. It's just that, and then they're very much worst of the worst. Worst of the worst when it comes to everything, like fighting wise. They're no morality. They go off of fear and they go off of what's it called? I forgot their leader's name, but he's pretty popular. His name is like Wyatt or Zayat or something like that. I don't know, but he's a very very scary man, and he's one of these apostles practically. He's like a demon that Guts has to eventually just fight and overcome, and Guts does, and then more demons appear, blah 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 boom, and then after they get through all that happens is the whole what's it called? What happens is Griffith gets kind of like a vision practically, like the eclipse is coming, and the whole thing about the eclipse in this anime slash manga or whatever you want to call it, the eclipse is the big bad. You feel me? That's the worst of the worst. When the eclipse is coming, that means that you know things are about to get really 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 nasty. So the eclipse is coming, and meaning so somebody's declared to become demon king. And this whole story, my dog Griffith has this little necklace with a kind of looks like a apple shape with face on it, like eyes and stuff, but they're like contorted. It's kind of weird, but and also Griffith loses this what's it called, this thing, he loses it, the necklace, during the whole imprisonment. He loses it due to the fact they're just trying to strip everything away from him. So Griffith gets a vision of actually himself, but in a healthy way, because while Griffith was in prison, all his skin and bones and everything were just. He has no muscle, he has no tongue, he has nothing. He's like deprived of all his just bodily function. He's still alive, but he just can't he can't move or talk like normally he could. So he's just kind of a shell of himself, and Griffith gets a vision of healthy Griffith, and so Griffith kind of goes AWOL. He grabs a cart with a horse, a carrot, I don't know what they call it, the horse, and then the cart in the back. He's in one of those, and then he tells the horse to go. The horse goes, and consequently, the horse gets him right to this little river part where he finds the whole necklace he had, which is actually like the thing that kind of makes him Demon King. It's because casuality. He was always destined to be Demon King, practically the whole thing. So he finds this whole thing, right? And so then the eclipse happened, and then the eclipse is practically your worst nightmare. Think about the worst thing possible in your mind right now. That's the eclipse. The most vile, most horrendous thing that could possibly happen in your brain. That's the eclipse. And when the eclipse happens, everything just goes to dog dookie. Everybody, I'm not gonna spoil what actually happens, but everything just goes bad. And let's just say Guts and Casca have this little ongoing romance before it happens, and then Griffith is kind of jealous, and let's just say Griffith is one of the most vile. I mean, he's a demon now, but he's very vile demon. So yeah, I mean, overall though, that's kind of the overall rundown and the overall gist of the show. If you want to watch it in the anime, I recommend you actually reading the manga over the anime, because there's just more. The art style is better, and you get more. Maybe I don't recommend it because it's kind of more vile, but you should read the manga. But overall, it's a very crazy story. I'm a big AOT fan, and I really like Chainsaw Man 2, which kind of gives me the same vibes, but Chainsaw Man is more of it's a kind of behind it, kind of those sign-in type of animes. It's very cool story, and I'm very invested in the story of Guts right now as I'm going, because I'm still keeping on. I'm still reading. I'm just getting past I'm in chapter like 99 or something like that. I'm about to hit 500, or not 500, 100. I'm in chapter 99, so I'm still keeping on. But it's a very, strange, vile kind of like the artist. I don't know the creator's name, but I know he has passed. I know his best friend from college or something is finishing it up for him. It's a very dark story, but it's very interesting in the same way, because if you see what Guts is all going through, and like you still see him keep a little piece of humanity toward in his in his heart, you feel me? And like he's just trying to push on and persevere, like as long as he has his sword, as long as he has his power, his whole like he has whatever it is behind him, he'll be fine. So if you see it more like as a human perspective, and like imagine like your neighbor or somebody you think is very strong, or somebody you think is very like perseverant, imagine Guts as that character, as that person. You feel me? Guts is somebody who's not gonna give up, and he's gonna keep fighting. And thankfully, after the what's it called? After the eclipse, Casca also is present in Guts' life without saying too much. He's present in his life, and he kind of devotes himself to protect her in a way, because Casca, the eclipse is the worst thing that could happen. So she definitely went through it too, and she's kind of in this state of like, she's kind of just in this traumatized state. And then Guts is still like, he himself has a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff, but he's more mentally just, I guess, used to just the worst of the worst happening to him. If you know the story from the beginning, Guts doesn't have a very good life, and that's Casca. But Casca's life is more like she's a spectator of horrible things, but Guts' life is more like he's a victim of horrible things going on. It's kind of weird, but overall, at least for the anime, I'm gonna rank it like, and out of 10, I'm gonna give it like a. I'm gonna give it like a. Nah, I'm gonna do the manga. Manga is better. Manga is better, to be honest. But I'm gonna give it like a solid 8 out of 10. It's really, really interesting, and I feel like if you have any type of like appreciation for that type of art, or that type of medium where it's just kind of like disgusting but beautiful in a way, you'll really appreciate Berserk, and you'll really appreciate the manga especially. It's a very interesting manga, and like the whole hype behind it, and there's a whole fandom. Like I literally searched up Berserk on my TikTok, and I swear to God, every other TikTok now I have is a Berserk edit, and I'm emotionally very much invested in these characters. So if you have like love for like an anime like AOT, or like, to let's say, not even, I was gonna say Demon Slayer, but no, nothing like Demon Slayer, like kind of like AOT or a sign-in like that. Villain Saga is another great example. Like one of those animes, you'll really like Berserk. You'll really like it, and I wouldn't recommend this to be your first one if you've never seen anything. That's for sure. But overall, I give it a good solid 8 out of 10. It's kind of hooked me currently. Excuse me. It's hooked me currently, and yeah, it's a very interesting story. Thank you for watching.